Free Spirit Media is on a mission to transform media and society. We recognize the power of media to influence the civic discourse and want to foster an accessible and inclusive conversation in our media.
We're here today discussing diversity and inclusion in the creative economy. And when we're talking about the creative economy, we're specifically talking about all of the monetary industry that we have built up around creativity and around our art. Now, like many industries in the United States, our creative economy has succumbed to some of the systems of oppression under which we live. And that has resulted in lacks in representation in all aspects of these fields. However, we are artists, and we are not passive artists, so things are changing. All of our panelists here tonight have a particular expertise and experience that's going to help us collectively ground ourselves in understanding where the creative economy is right now and where it's going in the future.
When I think of diversity and inclusion, it's about the different kinds of people, right, and the different things that we can all bring into one space.
But I also think it's important as minorities, LGBTQ, I think that it is important that we are supporting each other. And I think it's also important that we are making the conscious decision to create our own businesses and to create the work for ourselves. Because if you are sitting back waiting on someone else to create it for you, you will be waiting a very long time.
Part of diversity and inclusion, right, is the opposite of exclusion. And so much of creative economy and so many of the other things centers a certain kind of perspective. And what we do with diversity and inclusion is we open up that perspective.
And I think the step is for those of us who have had marginalized voices, lives, any type of circumscription, is to challenge the tenets of marginalization, right? It is to really go to the margins and just break them down.
I would argue that content creators allow themselves to be sustainable by creating authentic stories.
I'm thinking about space, ownership, and I'm also thinking about creating creative hubs and anchors or amplifying the creative hubs and anchors that exist in communities of color. I think that is especially needed for Chicago right now.
And at a time when, again, there's so much anti-intellectualism and so much anti-knowledge and anti-critical thought, that it's really important, I think, that we provide the pathways and the opportunities to turn really great possibilities into a kind of a sustainable enterprise.
To me, it's really simple. It's about supporting and celebrating the people around you. So that means if you can't literally buy something that your friend who may be marginalized is making or selling, it's literally reposting about them, sharing with other people, like, hey, you should check this book out.
What advice would you give to a young high schooler or just young Black or minority America that grew up in the middle class, that didn't start from the bottom, that feels disconnected from their culture because of that?
You are very brave to stand up and ask that, because honestly, because so many people would think it and never ask the question. And I would say, be your authentic self.
I don't think that we should buy into reductive notions of what, I'm just going to say in this particular case, Blackness is. But what storytellers are doing is saying, from Insecure to, just name them all, they're saying that there's an interior. There is stuff that happens out beyond the street light in Black and brown life. And we're going to have to, that's going to be important.
No. In this room, we're fortunate to have so many active producers around us. But just by you all coming out here and showing up and being a very present audience, it's very clear that we also have a very active audience. And that is an extremely important thing, and that's going to continue to be an extremely important thing for us to uptake this duty to not just passively consume. That's what makes us a media literate society, but that's also going to determine really the survival of these creative fields, as well as groups who are trying to push on that creative economy to make it a more just one.